I'm worried about the potential Gen 5 remake games. What's up guys, it's your boy Franklin here, and before we start this video, I'd simply like to say thank you guys so much for all the support. Please like and subscribe, that is the best way to support me for free and beat the algorithm, beat the case. But anyways, this topic for today's video is going to be that I am kind of worried about the Gen 5 remake games. Now you might be wondering, those are not going to happen. Well, unfortunately, there's a quick little timeline I'd like to show you in regards to Pokemon remakes. Now, it might be a little out of order, but as you can see here, the first technical remakes in the Pokemon franchise were Fire Red and Leaf Green, which was 2004, and those were the remakes of the Generation 1 games from 1996. And then 5 years later, we ended up getting Heart Gold and Soul Silver, which arguably is the best Pokemon games ever made. And then 5 years after, we ended up getting Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. And then 4 years after was Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, which again is a remake of Generation 1, or to be very specific, the Pokemon Yellow version, which technically we never really got in the United States back then. And then we ended up getting the last remakes, which were Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl 3 years later, obviously remakes of Generation 4. Assuming that the timeline is going to stay the same and the continuity is there as long as Pokemon exists, I suspect that probably next year or 2 years after, we might end up getting Generation 5 remakes. Now, I'm not saying we're going to get those games like in that particular order, because they might make some other remakes of games. Who knows? Who knows what they will do? But assuming that the timeline is correct, we're probably going to end up Generation 5 remakes. The reason why I don't think we're going to get Generation 6 and beyond, because those are technically considered the more modern games, which was the transition of the graphics from 2D to essentially 3D. And so, why am I worried? Well, there's a couple things that I like to talk about. Everything's going to be off script. This is just coming straight from whatever's on the top of my head. Number one, if you notice, the quality of such remakes, starting from Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee all the way to, Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, I definitely think that the quality of Pokemon games have gone down. Now, I'm not saying from a graphical standpoint, because I do believe Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee look pretty good, and I would say arguably have one of the best graphics in the entire franchise, but that's just up to me. That's just my opinion. When you look at Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, they took the chibi style a little too literal, and people were kind of divisive on that, saying that why didn't you just modernize the games to make them look like actual trainers, or simply the way the game looks, maybe it's more childish. I don't know in particular that whether having GameFreak or Ilka being in charge of these games might have taken different directions when it comes to creating such games. My biggest issue, however, comes from the content, because if I'm paying $60 for a Pokemon game, which is technically what they're worth nowadays, I want the content to be something that will make me play a game for hundreds upon hundreds of hours. The last game that did that kind of stuff for me in terms of a remake was ORAS. Now, obviously, ORAS had, the basis of the game, which is the original content from the game, but they added way more stuff. They added the Dex Nav. They added those training IV, super training IV. I forgot what it's actually called. It's like mini games that you can play with your Pokemon to get their IVs or EVs up, whatever. Stuff like that is what makes me want to play Pokemon for a longer time. Now, let's take a look into something like Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Yes, they obviously updated the game to make it look more modern, and they added a couple little things, such as the underground, where you can catch Pokemon in their own respective habitats, and that's pretty cool. I applaud them for doing something like that. But the issue with that is you gotta give us more. And if you're trying to give us a lot more content, then you should have just remade Pokemon Platinum. And the other issue I have is, like, how come we're not getting access to the sister games? Where's Pokemon Crystal? Where's Pokemon Emerald, Platinum? Like, those three games definitely changed the way we play Pokemon in a way that they added more than what the basis sister games provided, and they gave us more features that enable us to stay longer in the games. For example, Pokemon Emerald had the Battle Frontier. Pokemon Platinum had the Battle Frontier and had a bigger national dex. In Pokemon Emerald, you were given the options to choose between legendary Pokemon. That's pretty sick. I would love something like that in future remake games. And I feel like with Generation 5 and knowing that the Switch is like very archaic, I'm not really sure what the direction is going to be in regards to, you know, these remakes. Yes, I would love to see a graphical update, but I feel like you don't want to lose your identity when it comes to these games. If you recall from Pokemon Black and White and Black and White 2, you had this kind of like, I would say, Octopath Traveler graphic. I'm gonna call it that. Octopath Traveler kind of graphics, and that looked pretty cool. I really loved that look, and I feel like if you wanted to, I guess, update your graphics, I would say, hey, look at Octopath Traveler 1 and 2, for example, and just use that as a basis of creating the Pokemon games rather than making them chibi or making them too modern to the point that the identity of Black and White remakes get lost. And yes, you're trying to pull in newer fans, but hey, take this approach. Obviously, give us a lot more content, or just bring content from Black and White 2 into, these remakes. Because obviously, they're not going to remake sister games such as Black and White 2. But hey, bring the Pokemon World Tournament into Black and White. Or bring a bigger national dex into these games. I think that's pretty much like the basis of what a true remake should be. Now, I have played remakes of other games from different franchises, such as Kirby, Return of Dreamland. Phenomenal. If we're talking beyond Nintendo, we've had Resident Evil 4 remake, which is beautiful. Arguably, I would say that's the gold standard how remake should be. Dead Space, created by EA. Of all freaking companies, EA. Dead Space remake was phenomenal. It functioned. It was beautiful. I loved playing it. Of course, I love scary games. But at the end of the day, remakes need to be entertaining. They just can't be, I would say in a comparison, it's kind of like a Dodge Challenger. Now, Dodge Challengers from 2015 up to now, let's say it's the same, let's say if it's like a Hellcat or whatever. Yes, the year is going to change, but the base is the interior, the exterior of the card isn't really going to change. And I feel like that's what Pokemon remakes, like that's the biggest problems they're going to suffer. Just give us more content, update the graphics to an appropriate way that you don't lose its identity, and make it entertaining. Make it fun for us. Don't make it a chore for us trying to complete these games. We're trying to have fun by bringing a nostalgic factor. And yes, Pokemon is very guilty of trying to use nostalgia as a way of getting us into buying and playing these games. And I know these games are going to sell a lot. And I mean millions and millions of copies. That's just how it works. But that argument of, if it sells good, that means the game's good. That doesn't work. That doesn't work in today's standards. I just have a feeling that unless somebody takes reins of this game and has the knowledge behind what made Gen 5 so special, I just don't see these games performing well from a fan's point of view. And sure, from an economic point of view, they will definitely sell, but I feel like GameFreak needs to partner up with like companies that know how to make quote-unquote open world or 3D games. Monolith is a pretty good company that has taken control of, the Legend of Zelda series, and they've done very phenomenal work. Just take some advice or take some examples. Like, you're a multi-billion-dollar company. Like, do something about it. But anyways, that's all there is. Hopefully you guys get what I'm trying to say. I'm a little worried about these Generation 5 remakes because I have a feeling these games might make or break the Pokemon community. There might be some uproar. But who knows? It's your boy Franklin, signing out. Peace.